All right, you guys, this is chapter 6. Chapter 6 is titled Interpretation of Medication, of Labels and Orders, and this is the third portion of this lecture. Hopefully, I can kind of end this chapter, this being the very last one. But we ended with the first section of chapter 6, and you guys should have been practicing your practice problems A. If you come across any problems that you got stuck on, shoot me a quick email. Say, hey, Miss K, I need you to help me out with this, and I can go ahead and reply back to you. So now we are going with your book in hand and with your lecture notes in hand. Again, these lecture videos of it's just of me solving these problems and going through it with you guys. You should have already reviewed the PowerPoint that was provided to you, your lecture notes that was provided to you, and also you should have already read the chapter. So if you have your lecture notes and your book out, turn to page 164. Real quickly, the first section of the book and the first section of your lecture notes talked about prescriptions. You know, there's a difference between a prescription and a medication order. A medication order does not have 10 components. It only has 7. And the difference between a medication order is that a patient never sees a medication order. A medication order is written within an inpatient setting, such as a hospital. It's written directly from the doctor's tablet and is sent directly to the pharmacy department via an EMR system, is what they call it. And so that EMR system goes ahead, picks up that prescription, sends it to the pharmacy department, and based off of the facility that you work at, either a pharmacist or a pharmacy technician will review that order and they will transcribe it. Now, if you turn to page 166 in your book, it starts off with practice problems B. Now, because you know the difference between a medication order and a prescription, if you look at practice problems B, the directions say for you to interpret the following as medication orders. It doesn't say anything about providing prescription instructions or transcribing for prescription instructions. Why is that? Because a patient never sees a medication order. When you're in the hospital, or when you are in an inpatient setting, I'm getting a little tongue-tied, an inpatient setting, you receive your medication. It's being administered to you either by the nurse or whomever is on duty. I'm not going to say whomever is on duty. Normally it's a nurse or your doctor. So you're never going to interpret medication orders to provide label instructions. You're only going to interpret it just for reading purposes only. So for instance, for number 1, for practice problems B, starting on page 166, you're going to interpret the order to read. All right. So I interpret this order to read discontinue. I'm going to use the abbreviation Zocor. And then I'm going to say begin, because that's basically what they're doing. They're stopping Zocor and they're going to begin Lipitor 10 milligram tablet by mouth at bedtime. All right. As you can see, I didn't provide a verb of take or give or anything, because a nurse knows how to look at a order and determine what she needs to do as far as the instructions. So again, we interpret the order to read: discontinue Zocor, begin Lipitor 10 milligram tablet by mouth at bedtime. All right. Number 2, I'm going to read it to you. Number 2, your interpretation of this order should read: ampicillin suspension 250 milligrams by mouth 3 times a day until discontinued. Again, your interpretation of this medication order for number 2 should read: amoxicillin suspension 250 milligrams by mouth 3 times a day until discontinued. Number 3 reads, the interpretation of this medication order reads: cephalexin 500 milligrams by mouth every 8 hours for 3 days. Again, I interpret this order to read: cephalexin 500 milligrams by mouth every 8 hours for 3 days. That's fairly easy. All you have to do with medication orders is just interpret the order for the nurses or for the doctors. That's it. The patient is not going to administer their medication themselves, so there's no need to specify verbs. All right, but we do have to specify the route of administration, because when you work in a inpatient pharmacy setting, every drug that you thought only came in a tablet now may come in an injectable form, a oral liquid form, an oral solid form, an IV form. Okay, so you guys need to continue to practice your practice problems 4 through 14, actually 4 through 20, all the way to page 168. If you get stuck on one, please don't hesitate to send me an email and say, hey, Miss K, I just need a little clarification, and we go from there. All right, and I'll make sure that I answer your questions. Moving on, I want you guys to turn to page 170. 170 are your practice problem C. All right, you guys are going to practice those problems. I think it's from page 170 to 175. The third section of this chapter begins to discuss medication label indication. You should be able to pull a drug from the shelf and look at its label and determine all the components from that label. All right. So the practice problems C, the instructions are, again, I'm on page 170. Your instructions are that they want you, using the following labels, answer the questions that follow each label. That's what they want you to do. All right. There's not much writing I need to do with this, but I'm going to do number 1 with you guys and go from there. So number 1, and let me also tell you that the little picture next to the number, so if you look at number 1, it has a picture of a heart. This is telling you what this medication is for. So it's telling you that Pravachol, the indication is a heart medication. All right. If you look at number 2, the picture is what? Of bone. Just of a bone. So that means that this is what helps with maybe like osteoporosis, which it does. All right. So looking at number 1, the very first question says, who is the manufacturer of this medication? Well, your answer will be Bristol Myers Squibb Company. They are the manufacturer of this company. Again, you should have already read the chapter, read your lecture notes, and review the lecture, the PowerPoint prior to looking or reviewing my lecture videos. Now, your NDC number, that's the next question. What is the NDC number of this container? Again, NDC number stands for a national drug code. Just like any other item that's for sale, everything has a barcode. And when it comes to, things that are not pharmacy related or that are not drug related, it has a UPC code. Well, an NDC code is basically the UPC code for pharmaceutical medications. All right. And so again, those codes are broken up into 3 sections. The first section comes to you sometimes in 4 digits, but when you type it into a system, you should have 5 digits. So if you're missing the 5th digit, you add a leading 0. Those digits, or that first section, basically tells you who the manufacturer is. The second section of numbers should be 4 digits. If you're missing a digit, you always add a leading 0. All right. That stands for the description of the drug. So, for instance, this medication is Pravachol 10 milligram. The tablets, the middle 4 digits for the NDC is 5154. But for Pravachol 10 milligram capsules, the 4 digits of the NDC in the middle will be different because it's no longer tablets. It's now what? Capsules. The 4 digits of your NDC number that are captured in the middle will change if the dosage form change, if the dosage itself or the strength changes. Okay? And then the last 2 digits should be 2 digits. If you're missing a digit, you add a leading 0. But those last 2 digits stand for the quantity that's in the bottle. Now, if you see 10 as the last 2 digits, it doesn't mean it's only 10 tablets in the bottle. It means that this manufacturer uses 10 to indicate 50 tablets or to indicate 100 tablets. So what I'm saying is you can't look at the digits to determine the quantity that's in the bottle. So the NDC number on this container is at the very top, and it says 0003. I'm missing a digit, so I add a leading 0. 515405. The trade name for this medication, anytime it says trade name, that's the brand name. How do you know the difference between the trade name and the generic name? The trade name always has a trademark symbol behind it, and it's always most likely in capital letters. All right. So Pravachol is the trade name, aka brand name. All right. What is the generic name? Well, if you're dealing with a brand name medication, right up under that brand name is the generic name, or aka chemical name. All right. The chemical or generic name for this medication is Pravastatin sodium. The next question says the dosage form is indicated on the label. What is the strength of this medication? Well, it's right above the name, the brand name of the drug, which is what? 10 milligrams. And then it says before any medication has been dispensed, how many tablets are in the container? Well, if you look very closely at the very top left-hand corner of the middle section of this label, it tells you 90 tablets. So again, if you look at the last 2 digits of the NDC number, which is 05, this manufacturer company uses 05 to indicate 90 tablets. Some people would say 05 means it's only 5 tablets. No. In this case, this manufacturer uses 05 to indicate 90 tablets in their bottles. All right. You guys should be able to move forward and continue to practice your practice problems. Do numbers 2 through 10. So that's from page 170 to page 175. All right. The last section of this chapter basically talks about medication labels that you're going to come across that has different measurements, such as units and milliequivalents. So certain medications such as penicillin, heparin, insulin can sometimes be expressed in units, and it's simply, that's what it is, UNITS, units. That is, instead of milliliters or milligrams or are micrograms, you will see, especially for insulin, you will see 100 units as its measurement. All right. Penicillin is a good example, especially penicillin for an IV form. For a patient that is in the hospital, they need penicillin, and we need to make it as an IV. Well, you can sometimes see penicillin as 50,000 units. All right. A lot of electrolytes, medications come in a standard of milliequivalents. Milliequivalent is M. I'm sorry, it should be lowercase m. I think that looks more like an uppercase. It should be lowercase m, capital E, lowercase q. That's milliequivalents. That's the unit for milliequivalents. Again, no conversion there. It is what it is. That's the unit. All right, it's just like milligrams or grams or so on. So you may come across a medication. I've got a good example for you guys. KCL. That's what? Potassium chloride. That particular medication, and one thing for you guys to know, potassium chloride should never be injected directly into a patient's vein without diluting, because it gives a burning sensation. But KCL can come in different dosage forms, but the units used is milliequivalent. So you may see 50 milliequivalents KCL, 20 milliequivalents KCL, 30 milliequivalent KCL. That means that for every 1 milliliter, you get 50 milliequivalents. For every 1 milliliter, you get 20 milliequivalents of KCL. There's no conversion there. That's just how the drug comes. All right? So with that being said, I want you guys to turn to page 176 and look at your practice problems D. All right, again, it says, using the labels provided, answer the questions about units and milliequivalents. So for number 1, I have a potassium chloride injection, and in parentheses, it says 2 milliequivalent per milliliter. That is the dosage strength of this medication. For every 1 milliliter, it's what? 2 milliequivalents. Below that parentheses, it tells me my total dosage is 40 milliequivalent, and the one single dose vial has a total of 20 milliliters. All right. So the first question is, what is the total dosage of the medication in the vial? Well, your answer would be 40 milliequivalent per 20 milliliters. Well, does that make sense? Well, let's see. If every 1 milliliter equals 2 milliequivalents, if you multiply 2 milliequivalents times, my thing is messing up. If I take 2 milliequivalents and multiply it by 20 milliliters, so if I take 2 milliequivalents and multiply that by what? That's 2 milliequivalents per 1 milliliter, and multiply that by 20 milliequivalents per X. Let me say X, or it could say milliliters. Well, that's going to 2 times 20 is what? 40. That's 40 milliequivalents. All right. Don't worry about the units, you guys. Just know I'm saying 2 times 20 is what? 40. All right. That's the total dosage there. Who's the manufacturer? Your manufacturer is... Who's my manufacturer? My manufacturer is Lifomed Inc. What is the metric amount of the medication? The metric amount is, you guys learned in the first couple of chapters, you got your metric system. In this case, the metric unit that is shown is milliliters. All right. So your metric amount is 20 milliliters. All right. And then it asks you, what is the dosage form of the medication? It tells you. It's an injection. All right. So that means your form is an injectable. So I'm coming to the end of chapter 6, but moving forward, I want you guys to continue to practice your practice problems D, numbers 2 through, I think it stops at 10 on page 180. If you get stuck on one, always feel free to give me a quick email and I can help you out. But once you finish that, I also want you to also do your pre-test and your post-test for chapter 6. Why is this important? Because a lot of your questions on your exam come from your pre-test, post-test, and of course some of the assignments that I post within the chapter. So feel free to send me a quick email if you have any questions, and this is going to be the end of the chapter 6 lecture. This is part 3, but this is the end for the entire chapter.